We open on what looks like a picture-perfect morning. Ethan's wife leaves a sweet message talking about their son Jason's birthday party. The whole scene is giving majorly domestic and calm vibes, almost too perfect. You just know the universe is about to cook up some drama for this family. Ethan, our main guy, is an architect and decides to get some work done before the family comes home. He's sketching out plans, looking super focused. It's a quiet moment that establishes his whole responsible dad persona, just a regular dude trying to balance work and family life. The family reunion is pure chaos, but in a good way. The kids, Jason and Shaun, come barreling in, all hyped for the birthday. It's a snapshot of a genuinely happy family. They're teasing each other and just enjoying the moment, making the calm before the storm feel even more intense. The birthday party prep is in full swing, and Ethan heads outside to play with his sons. It's all wholesome fun with helicopters and sword fights. This is the peak of their happiness, a golden hour memory that's about to be shattered. The game is really laying it on thick here. Things take a somber turn when Shaun finds his pet bird, Merlin, has passed away. It's a small, sad moment, but it's a huge bit of foreshadowing. Ethan tries to comfort him with a little speech about life and loss, which is about to become way too relevant for them. The family heads to a crowded mall, and this is where everything goes wrong. While his mom is shoe shopping, Jason wanders off, mesmerized by a balloon. Ethan gets distracted for just a second, paying for the balloon, and Jason vanishes into the crowd. The panic starts to set in immediately. In a heart-stopping sequence, Ethan finds Jason across a busy street. As Jason runs back towards him, tragedy strikes. A car hits him, and the idyllic family life we just saw is destroyed in an instant. This single event becomes the catalyst for everything that follows, sending Ethan into a spiral. Fast forward 2 years, and the vibe is completely different. The house is drab, and Ethan is a ghost of his former self. His surviving son, Shaun, arrives, but their connection is strained and awkward. The grief has created a massive rift between them, and the silence is deafening. Ethan is trying to reconnect with Shaun, but it's a struggle. He reads him a grim story about children disappearing, which is some seriously dark foreshadowing. The distance between them is heartbreaking. They're both trapped in their own grief and can't seem to reach each other at all. Ethan's mental state is clearly deteriorating. He's haunted by home videos of his family when they were happy, a painful reminder of everything he's lost. It's a quiet moment of reflection that shows just how deeply the trauma has affected him, making him relive the past over and over. We switch perspectives to Scott Shelby, a private investigator. He's visiting Lauren Winter, the mother of a victim of the Origami Killer. The mood is heavy and grim. Scott is trying to get information, but Lauren is understandably defensive and heartbroken, setting up the central mystery of the game. Scott proves he's not just a talker when Lauren's aggressive ex-client shows up. Scott steps in and a messy fight breaks out in her apartment. It's a gritty scene that establishes Scott as a capable, old-school detective who isn't afraid to get his hands dirty to protect someone. Hi there. If you want to enjoy more gaming lore without grinding for 60 hours, hit that subscribe button. I do the grinding so you don't have to. Your support really helps the channel. Now we meet FBI profiler Norman Jayden, who arrives at a new crime scene. It's a bleak, rainy wasteland where the latest victim of the Origami Killer has been found. He's here to work the case, but he immediately clashes with the local police, particularly the abrasive Lieutenant Blake. Using his futuristic augmented reality glasses, Norman analyzes the crime scene. He finds the signature clues left by the killer: an orchid on the victim's chest and an origami figure in his hand. This tech-savvy approach sets him apart from the brutish methods of the local cops. We're back with Ethan, who is now in therapy. He's wrestling with immense guilt over Jason's death and reveals he's been having blackouts. He can't account for periods of time, which is not only terrifying for him, but also a major red flag for the plot moving forward. Trying to be a good dad, Ethan takes Shaun to the park. The mood is still somber, but for a moment, they reconnect by playing on the seesaw. It's a small glimmer of hope, a sign that their relationship might be salvageable despite all the pain they've been through. Just as things seem to be getting better, disaster strikes again. While Shaun is on a carousel, Ethan has another blackout. When he comes to, Shaun is gone. This is the inciting incident that officially pulls Ethan into the Origami Killer's twisted game, turning his life into a nightmare. Norman Jayden is at the police station, getting settled into his new, less-than-glamorous office. He's introduced to the politics of the department and the pressure to solve the case. It's clear he's an outsider who will have to fight to get his modern methods taken seriously. Using his ARI system, Norman pieces together a profile of the Origami Killer. He analyzes the locations of the murders and the ritualistic elements, concluding the killer is intelligent and organized. He's starting to understand his opponent, even if he doesn't have any solid leads yet. Ethan is now at the police station, being questioned by the condescending Lieutenant Blake about Shaun's disappearance. The suspicion is palpable. When his ex-wife Grace arrives, the tension and grief are overwhelming as she partly blames Ethan for losing another son. Meanwhile, Scott Shelby is continuing his own investigation. He visits a convenience store owner whose son was also a victim. The interview is interrupted by a robbery, and Scott intervenes to save the owner. This act of bravery earns him the man's trust and a crucial piece of evidence. We meet our fourth protagonist, Madison Paige, a journalist suffering from insomnia. She's in her apartment, unable to sleep, and becomes convinced there's an intruder. The scene builds into a terrifying home invasion nightmare, only for it to be revealed as a stress-induced hallucination. Ethan wakes up from a blackout in a strange place, holding an origami figure. He's received a mysterious letter and a locker key, which he realizes is a clue from the kidnapper. This is the official start of his twisted scavenger hunt to save Shaun, a series of trials. Following the clue, Ethan goes to a train station locker. Inside, he finds a shoebox containing a handgun, a cell phone, and more origami figures. A video on the phone shows Shaun trapped and terrified, with a message from the killer demanding to know how far Ethan will go. Norman presents his findings to the police department, explaining his theory that the killer drowns his victims in rainwater and that they only have a few days to save Shaun. Blake is skeptical and dismissive, preferring old-fashioned police work over Norman's psychological profiling, highlighting their growing conflict. Norman and Blake go to question their first suspect, a religious zealot named Nathaniel. The interrogation gets tense, with Nathaniel pulling a crucifix on Blake. Norman has to de-escalate the situation, showing his preference for psychology over Blake's brute force tactics. The suspect is clearly a dead end. Scott Shelby visits another victim's mother, Susan Bowles, and finds her in a state of deep despair, having overdosed. Scott acts quickly to save her and then takes care of her crying baby. It's a moment of genuine compassion that reinforces his image as a caring and heroic figure. After saving her, Scott learns that Susan's husband also disappeared after their son was taken. She gives him a cell phone she found among his things, another potential clue. This pattern of disappearing fathers seems significant, though its meaning isn't clear yet. Ethan is led to his first trial. The killer's voice on a GPS instructs him to drive against traffic on the highway for 5 miles. It's a terrifying and reckless test of his resolve. He has to swerve through oncoming cars in a high-stakes challenge to prove his dedication. After surviving the highway trial, a battered and bruised Ethan stumbles into a motel. This is where he meets Madison Paige for the first time. She finds him collapsed in the hallway and, despite not knowing him, decides to help, bringing him into her room to tend to his wounds. Madison tends to Ethan's injuries, and they share a quiet moment of vulnerability. He's reserved and won't explain what happened, but a connection forms between them. This chance encounter marks the beginning of their alliance, as she becomes the only person Ethan can trust. Norman and Blake interrogate another suspect who turns out to have a solid alibi. They are back to square one. Just then, Ethan's ex-wife, Grace, provides a statement to the police about Ethan's blackouts, inadvertently making him the prime suspect in his own son's kidnapping. Scott Shelby's investigation leads him to an old acquaintance, Manfred, an antique shop owner specializing in typewriters. He asks Manfred to analyze an envelope, hoping to trace the typewriter used by the killer. It's a classic detective move, digging into the physical evidence to find a lead. Scott brings Lauren Winter, a victim's mother, to a lavish party hosted by Gordy Kramer, the son of a wealthy tycoon and a potential suspect. Scott needs to get past Gordy's bodyguards to question him, setting up a stealthy infiltration mission in the middle of a debaucherous party. Scott finally confronts Gordy Kramer, who chillingly and sarcastically confesses to being the Origami Killer just to mess with him. The conversation is cut short when Gordy's bodyguards attack Scott. It's a tense confrontation that ends in a brawl, leaving Scott with more questions than answers. Ethan arrives at his next trial, set in a dangerous abandoned power plant. The test is to navigate a tunnel filled with broken glass and then a maze of sparking electrical transformers. It's a physically grueling and painful challenge designed to push him to his absolute limit. Ethan, severely injured from the power plant trial, collapses back at the motel. Madison finds him unconscious and feverish. She once again acts as his guardian angel, cleaning his deep cuts and nursing him back to health. Her commitment to helping this mysterious stranger deepens. The police, now fully convinced Ethan is the killer, interrogate another one of his associates, a parole violator. It's another dead end. Blake's frustration grows, and he becomes more fixated on capturing Ethan, ignoring Norman's warnings that the profile doesn't match up. Blake and Norman visit Ethan's therapist, and Blake uses aggressive tactics to get information. The therapist reveals Ethan's psychological issues and, crucially, an origami figure he found. This solidifies Blake's belief in Ethan's guilt, and an all-points bulletin is issued for his arrest. Scott Shelby is summoned to a golf course to meet with Charles Kramer, Gordy's powerful father. Kramer tries to bribe and then threatens Scott to drop the investigation into his son. The conversation is dripping with menace, showing how far Kramer will go to protect his family. Ethan's third trial takes place in a vacant apartment. The challenge is to cut off a part of his own finger on camera. The game provides him with various tools, from a rusty saw to an axe, forcing him to make an agonizing choice in a brutal test of pain and sacrifice. The police have tracked Ethan's car to the apartment building where he just completed the trial. As Madison arrives to check on him, she spots the cops and realizes they are about to raid the building. The stage is set for a tense escape as the police close in. Madison warns Ethan, and they make a daring escape from the apartment building, with the police hot on their heels. The chase leads them into a crowded subway station where they have to navigate through panicked crowds and jump over turnstiles to evade capture and get on a train. Hiding out in a new motel room, Ethan finally opens up to Madison about his blackouts and the trials. He confesses that he fears he might actually be the killer. Despite this, Madison believes in his innocence, solidifying their bond and her role as his staunchest ally. Norman Jayden is in his virtual office, dealing with a severe withdrawal from his addiction to the drug tryptocane. The surreal environment reflects his internal struggle. He tries to focus on the case, analyzing new surveillance footage that might show the killer's car near the park. Scott and Lauren return to Manfred's shop, only to find him murdered. Realizing the killer has been there, they hear police sirens approaching. The killer has framed them for the murder, forcing them to quickly wipe their fingerprints and escape before the cops arrive. After escaping the police, Scott and Lauren have a heated argument. He tries to send her away for her own safety, but she refuses. Their partnership is strained, but their shared goal of finding the killer keeps them together, even as the danger escalates dramatically. Ethan's fourth trial is the most morally challenging yet. He enters the home of a drug dealer and is instructed by the killer to take his life. Ethan is faced with an impossible choice: become a murderer himself to save his son, or refuse and fail the test. Madison continues her own investigation, tracking down the owner of the apartment where Ethan's trial took place. This leads her to a shady, disgraced doctor. Playing the part of a potential client, she tries to get information from him, navigating a creepy and dangerous encounter. Norman Jayden tracks the killer's car to a chop shop run by a tough character named Mad Jack. After analyzing the scene with his ARI glasses, Norman confronts Jack, leading to a brutal fight in the scrapyard. Norman's physical limits are tested as he fights for his life. After a grueling fight, Norman has Mad Jack at his mercy. He threatens to blow up the garage to get information. Jack finally cracks, revealing he sold a new car to the killer and that he was supposed to contact someone named Paco at a club called the Blue Lagoon. Scott and Lauren are back at his office, trying to piece together the clues. He makes her scrambled eggs, a moment of strange domesticity amidst the chaos. They realize they can cross-reference Manfred's client list with a list of Origami magazine subscribers to find a suspect. Their cross-referencing leads them to a single name, John Shepard. However, they discover that John Shepard died as a child 30 years ago. This confusing lead takes them to a cemetery to investigate his grave, hoping to understand the connection to the present-day murders. At the cemetery, the gravedigger tells them the tragic story of John Shepard. He and his twin brother were playing at a construction site when John fell into a pipe and drowned in rainwater during a storm. His brother tried to get help from their drunk, abusive father, who refused. As they process this heartbreaking story, Scott and Lauren see Charles Kramer, the wealthy tycoon, placing flowers on John Shepard's grave. This is a shocking connection. They realize Kramer owned the construction site where the boy died, linking him directly to the decades-old tragedy. Madison tracks down Paco at the Blue Lagoon nightclub. To get close to him, she has to cause a distraction by performing a seductive dance on stage. It's a tense, risky move that puts her in the spotlight, but is her only way to get his attention. Madison successfully gets Paco to take her to his private office. There, she pulls a gun on him and interrogates him about the apartment. He admits he rented it to a man named John, but before she can get more, Paco's bodyguards interrupt, and she has to fight her way out. Norman Jayden arrives at the Blue Lagoon just moments after Madison has left. He finds Paco murdered in his office. Analyzing the scene, he discovers clues that the Origami Killer was there, including a receipt from a gas station and Madison's press card, making her a potential witness. Back at the motel, Ethan tells Madison he couldn't go through with killing the drug dealer. She reassures him that he's not a killer and reveals she has evidence to prove it. It's a tender moment of relief, but their ordeal is far from over. Ethan discovers Madison's true identity as a journalist when he finds her press credentials. He feels betrayed, accusing her of using him for a story. She tearfully explains that her feelings for him became genuine, but the trust between them is shattered just as they need it most. Just as Ethan is about to leave for his final trial, Madison gets a call warning her that the police are raiding the motel. She alerts Ethan, and another frantic chase ensues. This time, he's cornered on the rooftop, leading to a dramatic standoff with the police. Scott Shelby reveals his true colors. He takes Lauren to a secluded location where Charles Kramer is waiting. Kramer tries to drown Scott, but Scott turns the tables. It's revealed that Kramer was covering for his son, who accidentally killed one child in a twisted copycat act, but isn't the real killer. Scott, having dealt with Kramer, confronts his son Gordy in his mansion. Gordy, surrounded by his own depraved entertainment, is no match for Scott. The encounter is brutal and decisive, as Scott eliminates the final loose end to his long-standing, twisted plan. Madison tracks down Anne Shepard, the mother of John Shepard and his twin, in a nursing home. Anne is suffering from Alzheimer's, and her memory is fragmented. Madison tries to gently coax information from her about her other son, the one who survived the accident all those years ago. Using an orchid to trigger a memory, Madison finally gets Anne Shepard to remember. She reveals the name of her surviving son, the one who was adopted after his brother's death and his father's neglect. It's a bombshell revelation. The killer is Scott Shelby. Ethan arrives at his final trial. He is presented with a vial of poison and told he has 1 hour to live if he drinks it. This is the ultimate sacrifice, his own life for the location of his son. He drinks the poison without hesitation, believing it's real. Norman is back in his ARI office, and he's been taken off the case by a smug Lieutenant Blake. Refusing to give up, Norman makes one last attempt to solve the case, piecing together all the clues he's gathered: the killer's gun, the gas station receipts, and a recording from a fight. The final piece of the puzzle clicks into place. Norman realizes the killer must be a cop, which is how he was able to manipulate the investigation. Cross-referencing his geolocation data with police records, he gets a name: Scott Shelby. He now knows where the killer lives. Scott is shown tying up his final loose ends, getting ready to disappear. A flashback reveals the core of his trauma: his brother, John, drowning while he was helpless, unable to save him. His entire life has been a twisted reenactment of this failure, searching for a worthy father. Madison breaks into Scott Shelby's apartment. Inside, she finds his secret room, filled with evidence from all the murders, a twisted trophy collection. She finds a laptop showing a live feed of Shaun drowning in a well, and, crucially, the address of the warehouse where he's being held. Scott returns and traps Madison in the apartment, setting it on fire to destroy the evidence. Madison is forced to find a way to escape the burning building, a desperate race against time to get the information about Shaun's location to Ethan before it's too late. Ethan, Madison, and Norman all converge on the old warehouse where Shaun is being held. Ethan arrives first and is confronted by Scott Shelby. Scott monologues about his motivations, explaining his search for a father willing to sacrifice anything before their final dramatic confrontation begins. As Ethan and Scott fight, Madison arrives and tries to warn the police outside, led by a still convinced Lieutenant Blake that Ethan is innocent. She has to get past the police cordon to stop them from making a tragic mistake and shooting the wrong man. Ethan finally reaches Shaun, pulling him from the rising water just in time. It's a moment of pure relief and emotion. He then realizes the poison he drank was fake. It was the final psychological test. He survived, and he has saved his son. In the aftermath, the news reports celebrate Ethan Mars as a hero and reveal Scott Shelby as the true Origami Killer. The story ends on a hopeful note, with Ethan, Shaun, and Madison moving into a new apartment, ready to start a new life together as a family. The epilogue shows what happened to the other characters. Norman Jayden, hailed as a hero, is seen struggling with his tryptocane addiction and the haunting visions it causes. His victory came at a great personal cost, leaving his future uncertain despite his professional success. The final epilogue focuses on Lauren Winter. She is shown standing over Scott Shelby's grave, her expression a mix of contempt and sorrow. She delivers a final, scathing condemnation of the man who befriended her while being responsible for her son's death, finding her own dark closure. Gaming lore is long and confusing, but I break it down every week. Subscribe so you never miss a plot twist or hidden detail. Thanks for watching.